Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and expands our base. We have a lot to talk about today and a lot to anticipate, so let me get right to it. First of all, foreign policy is once again front and center in this presidential campaign. Volodymyr Zelensky visited the White House yesterday, received the full backing and endorsement of both President Biden and Vice President Harris. Additional aid is being provided, and the United States, under the current administration, is committed to fighting for Ukraine. I was intrigued that Kamala Harris spoke extensively and extraordinarily ably on the question of Ukraine. Her position leaves no ambiguity. If she is president of the United States, Ukraine will be protected. Now, there is talk that today, and this is Friday, that today Donald Trump will also meet with Zelensky. Now, we know that Donald Trump yesterday spoke of withdrawing support from Ukraine. And we know that J.D. Vance, the vice presidential nominee of the Republican Party, has opposed aid to Ukraine. And I was fascinated to hear Senator Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, the majority leader, say clearly that the Republicans are making a mistake, that there are many Americans who have Ukrainian ancestry or Eastern European descent, and they are not happy with Trump and Vance. I believe that to be true, and those of you who listen to this podcast know I've been saying it for a long time. We'll take a look and see what happens in Ohio, in Michigan, and Wisconsin, among other states, with large Eastern European communities. But the simple truth is that the battle for Ukraine and the support for Ukraine is critical. If the next president of the United States is Donald Trump, and aid to Ukraine is reduced, the Ukrainians will lose their struggle. There is no question about it. I want to say a word about the Middle East. This morning, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, spoke before the United Nations. I watched, listened, observed what was said. The most interesting thing for me is that many who should have been in the hall at the UN were not. And Netanyahu, who was the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations 40 years ago, remarked about the prejudice against Israel which still exists, what he called anti-Semitism, which still exists in the United Nations. There is no doubt that the United Nations condemns Israel many times a year, more than any other condemnation of any other nation in the world. It's a serious, serious problem, particularly for those of us who believed and still want to believe that the United Nations serves a vital and important function. So, foreign policy is central, and I'm going to include under foreign policy the question of global warming. Although Prime Minister Netanyahu and the UN have not fundamentally addressed the question today, the simple truth is that what we see happening right now in the southeast of the United States with Helene, this massive storm, and its impact on Florida, North Carolina, Georgia. When you watch what's happening, you understand that Mother Nature is not to be trifled with. And yet, the ability to grapple with the problems of global warming really maybe are beyond us. Let me point out that Donald Trump withdrew us from the Paris Accords. Joe Biden put us back in. Kamala Harris is committed to addressing the issue of global warming, although I don't think anybody has a solution. And, of course, Donald Trump, well, he expresses those same hesitancies. It's something we all need to reflect on when we go to the polls. Let me now move, if I can, directly to some domestic concerns. First of all, Monday, I will focus directly on the vice presidential debate, which will take place next Tuesday night. I'll try to put in context the implications of that debate and whether or not the vice presidency matters. I'm going to do that on Monday, assuming that other things don't overwhelm us. We must also be aware that in that vice presidential debate, there should be the question of global warming being raised, because it is something that, frankly, is an existential question for all of us. Let me say a quick word about Mayor Adams in New York, who has now been formally indicted. And I looked over the indictment, and I have to tell you, it's pretty devastating. The question now is what will happen. Adams swears he will never resign. And of course, being a student of history, I went back and remember another time, another mayor of New York, James J. Jimmy Walker. Bo James, as he was called, a popular mayor who had been elected and reelected and who presided over one of the most corrupt administrations imaginable. And of course, in the end, rather than having to be removed by the governor of New York, who was Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1932, Jimmy Walker resigned, and the Democratic Party was let off the hook, if you will, over the question of what to do about a corrupt New York mayor. Well, in this case, Adams has yet to face the bar of justice. But it is, no doubt, critical to understand that corruption is there. And Adams, to be very honest with you, has failed. His relationship with Turkey, absolutely intriguing. And of course, there is more that is happening in the political world, including North Carolina, a swing state, and its candidate, the Republican candidate for governor, who is losing his staff right and left because of his hateful, racist remarks, at least those remarks attributed to him. And of course, we know that that is going to be critical in the presidential election because North Carolina, which was not a swing state, is now a swing state. Now, my friends, I could go on with political analysis and tell you all of the issues which we confront. One thing is clear. There should be another presidential debate. And I hope that as Kamala Harris has accepted the opportunity to appear on the stage with Donald Trump, that we will see Donald Trump agree to come as well. I can't imagine that he will give Senator Vance the last word in a debate or joint appearance. But what I want to see them address, the question of global warming, the question of American foreign policy, the questions surrounding whether or not they, Democrats and Republicans, will accept the judgment of the American people on November 5th. We'll be talking more about that in the future because, frankly, there are those who say, and I speak now to my Republican friends, that no matter what the result, they will not accept it. That, my friends, means that after November 5th, we may still be debating the question of who is president of the United States. It's going to be a fascinating period now on so many levels, and I'm looking forward to discussing it all with you right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. And of course, you can interact with me on LinkedIn and through Facebook. And many of you contact me directly, and I welcome your comments. It's very helpful. And of course, my special appreciation to the wonderful producer of this podcast, Gogo Zoger. I am John Rothman. I will be back on Monday, and we will see where the world is going. Have a great weekend. See you then. Around the Political World with John Rothman is proud to introduce our first sponsor. That's right. We have someone who loves what we do, and I have to tell you, I love what she does. Be Bold America is produced by KSQD, and of course, the person who leads us through these great discussions is none other than Jill Cody. She's an author, a radio personality, and she does one heck of a job of putting into focus major issues, from protecting democracy to our climate. Let me tell you, the topics on the podcast are serious. It's not for the faint of heart, but that's to say, the show is for all of us. Be bold in America. In an election year, what can we do to increase discussion, debate, and the rest? I'll tell you what we can do. Listen to Jill Cody as she exposes all of us to the issues. You can tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you like to get your shows. So this is John Rothman, delighted, pleased, thrilled to endorse Jill Cody's wonderful program, Be Bold, America.